Dr. Zura Chun stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Research Station Omega-7, watching the endless stream of starships dock and depart. Each vessel represented a different species from the Galactic Confederation, their sleek designs reflecting thousands of years of technological refinement. The Altarian ships glowed with crystalline energy cores. The Vorthan vessels moved with fluid grace through space-time manipulation, and the mighty Kethran battlecruisers dominated the shipping lanes with their quantum-folded armor plating. Among all these marvels of engineering, the small human transport shuttle looked like a relic from a forgotten age. Its hull was patched with mismatched metals. Its engines sputtered with primitive chemical propulsion, and its communication array consisted of basic radio transmissions that other species had abandoned millennia ago. Yet Zara felt a surge of pride watching it maneuver toward the docking bay. That ugly little ship had carried her across half the galaxy to reach this moment. Dr. Chun, the Council of Sciences is ready for your presentation, announced ARIX-7, the station's artificial intelligence. The voice carried the typical condescending tone that most advanced AI systems used when addressing humans. Please proceed to Conference Hall Prime. And, Dr. Chun, the Council wishes to remind you that your research proposal requires unanimous approval from all 12 member species. Zara picked up her data pad and made her way through the gleaming corridors of the station. Holographic displays showed real-time updates from research projects across the galaxy. The Zephyrians had just completed their latest breakthrough in consciousness transfer technology. The Morphic Collective had developed new bioadaptive materials that could reshape themselves at the molecular level. The Ethereal Assembly had achieved another milestone in their quest to manipulate dark energy directly. Compared to these achievements, Zara's proposal seemed almost laughably primitive. She was asking for funding to study what other species considered galactic junk, the scattered remains of dead civilizations that littered space like cosmic debris. Most of these artifacts were so old and degraded that even the most advanced scanning technologies couldn't determine their original purpose. They were cataloged, stored in vast warehouses, and forgotten. The Conference Hall Prime was a magnificent chamber with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time view of the surrounding starfield. 12 seats were arranged in a perfect circle, each designed to accommodate the unique physiology of the different species that made up the Council of Sciences. As Zara entered, she felt the weight of their collective attention. Counselor Vexthara of the Altarian hegemony was the first to speak. Her crystalline form pulsed with soft blue light as she communicated through harmonic frequencies translated by the universal communicator. Dr. Chun, we have reviewed your proposal to establish an archaeological reconstruction initiative. While we appreciate humanity's enthusiasm for joining galactic scientific endeavors, we must question the practical value of studying technological artifacts that are clearly beyond any hope of functional analysis. The Vorthan representative, Counselor Renth, face shifted slightly as he spoke, his form becoming translucent. Our species has encountered similar debris fields throughout our expansion across 17 galaxies. We have concluded that these artifacts represent failed evolutionary branches, civilizations that lacked the wisdom to transcend their primitive technological limitations before their inevitable collapse. Zara activated her presentation display, and holographic images of various artifacts filled the center of the chamber. Twisted metal fragments, crystalline matrices with dark cores, mechanical devices with purposes lost to time, all of it dismissed by the galactic community as worthless scrap. Counselors, I understand your skepticism, Zara began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. But I believe we're making a fundamental error in our approach to these artifacts. We're trying to analyze them using our current technological paradigms. But what if these civilizations developed along completely different technological paths? The massive form of Counselor Thokmor from the Kethran Empire leaned forward, his exoskeleton clicking against his chair. Human, your species has been part of the galactic community for merely 2 centuries. The artifacts you wish to study have been examined by civilizations with millions of years of advancement. If we cannot determine their function, it is because they have no function. With respect, Counselor Throckmore, that's exactly my point, Zara replied. We're approaching these artifacts with the assumption that all technological development follows similar patterns. But human history shows us that innovation often comes from unexpected directions. Sometimes the most revolutionary breakthroughs come from combining old ideas in new ways. She gestured to one of the displayed artifacts, a spherical object covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. This artifact was recovered from the Terminus Nebula 300 years ago. 17 different species have scanned it, analyzed it, and concluded it's nothing more than decorative metalwork from a primitive culture. But what if we're wrong? What if the patterns aren't decorative, but functional? Counselor SYDH of the Morphic Collective extended several tentacle-like appendages, each one flickering with bioluminescent patterns. Dr. Chun, even if you're correct about the potential functionality of these artifacts, how do you propose to unlock their secrets? Our most advanced analysis techniques have failed to reveal any technological basis for their operation. This was the moment Zara had been preparing for, because we've been approaching them as individuals' artifacts rather than components of larger systems. Human archaeological methodology emphasizes understanding artifacts within their cultural and technological contexts. We don't just study individual objects, we study how they relate to each other, how they were used together, and what they can tell us about the societies that created them. She brought up a new set of images showing various artifacts arranged in different configurations. I've been analyzing the placement patterns of artifacts recovered from the same locations. There are recurring mathematical relationships in their positions, relationships that suggest they weren't just scattered randomly, but were positioned deliberately. What if these aren't broken machines, but pieces of machines? What if we've been trying to understand individual components when we should be trying to reconstruct the complete systems? The chamber fell silent as the council members processed this information. Counselor Vexthara's crystalline form pulsed more rapidly, indicating deep consideration. Dr. Chun, even if your hypothesis is correct, the computational requirements for analyzing all possible combinations and configurations would be enormous. It would require resources that could be better allocated to proven research initiatives. That's where human ingenuity comes in, Zara said with a slight smile. We've developed a new approach called adaptive pattern recognition. Instead of trying to analyze every possible combination mathematically, we use human intuition and pattern recognition capabilities enhanced by AI assistance. Humans are exceptionally good at seeing connections that pure logic might miss. Counselor Renth phase shifted again, his skepticism evident even across species barriers. You propose to solve technological puzzles that have stumped the galaxy's greatest minds through human guesswork. Not guesswork, Zara corrected. Inspired problem solving. Human creativity has always been our greatest strength. We see possibilities where others see impossibilities. We find solutions that shouldn't work according to conventional logic, but somehow do work in practice. The ethereal assembly representative, Counselor Luminos, communicated through direct telepathic projection. Their thoughts appeared as glowing text in the universal translator. The human perspective is intriguing, but what tangible benefits could result from this research? Even if you succeed in activating some of these artifacts, what guarantee do we have that the knowledge gained would be useful? Zara had anticipated this question. Counselor Luminos, consider the history of scientific discovery. Many of the most important breakthroughs came from research that seemed impractical at the time. The fundamental principles behind faster-than-light travel, consciousness transfer, and dimensional manipulation were all discovered by scientists studying seemingly unrelated phenomena. We can't know what we'll discover until we try to discover it. She paused, looking around the chamber at each council member. But there's another consideration. These artifacts represent the only remaining traces of civilizations that once existed. If we don't make an effort to understand them, that knowledge will be lost forever. As a galactic community, don't we have a responsibility to preserve and understand our shared history? The sentiment seemed to resonate with some of the council members. The Zephyrian representative, Counselor Mist, whose form consisted of shifting energy patterns contained within a humanoid outline, brightened noticeably. The preservation argument has merit. Our species has learned much about consciousness by studying the thought patterns preserved in ancient quantum matrices. Perhaps these artifacts contain similar historical information. Throckmore's exoskeleton clicked impatiently. Sentimental philosophy does not justify the allocation of scientific resources. If the human wishes to pursue this research, let her species fund it independently. With respect, Counselor Throckmore, this research could benefit everyone, Zara replied. I'm not asking for massive funding or exclusive access to resources. I'm requesting permission to establish a small research facility and access to the artifact warehouses that are currently just taking up space anyway. The cost would be minimal compared to other galactic research initiatives. Counselor Vextara's form dimmed as she consulted with the other Altarian representatives through quantum-entangled communication. After several moments, she brightened again. Dr. Chun, the Altarian hegemony is willing to consider your proposal, but we require a demonstration of viability. Can you provide evidence that your approach has potential for success? Zara felt her heart race. This was the opening she needed. Actually, I can. I've been conducting preliminary research using artifacts stored in the Sol system. 3 months ago, I succeeded in activating a device that had been classified as non-functional for over a century. She activated a new holographic display showing a small metallic object about the size of a human hand. It appeared unremarkable, just a smooth, oval-shaped piece of metal with no obvious features or controls. This artifact was recovered from a dead system in the Outer Rim. Multiple species examined it and found no technological components, no energy signatures, no indication of purpose. It was cataloged as primitive artwork. Zara smiled, but when I arranged it alongside 17 other artifacts from the same location and applied a specific harmonic frequency, this happened. The holographic recording showed the moment of activation. The oval object suddenly came alive, its surface rippling with patterns of light that seemed to dance in three-dimensional space. More remarkably, the other artifacts in the arrangement began to respond, creating a complex web of energy interactions that filled the laboratory with a soft, pulsing glow. The activated device appears to be some kind of information storage and retrieval system, Zara continued. We haven't been able to decode the stored information yet, but preliminary analysis suggests it contains vast amounts of data, possibly the accumulated knowledge of an entire civilization. The council chamber erupted in discussions as representatives conferred with their respective governments through instantaneous communication links. The implications were staggering. If humans had indeed activated a previously unknown information storage technology, it could represent the biggest archaeological discovery in galactic history. Counselor SYDH extended additional appendages, their bioluminescent patterns flickering rapidly with excitement. Dr. Chun, are you certain this activation was achieved through your reconstruction methodology and not through accidental stimulation of dormant systems? I'm certain, Zara replied confidently. The activation required a specific arrangement of artifacts and a precisely calibrated harmonic frequency. I've repeated the process multiple times with consistent results. More importantly, I've identified similar artifact groupings in 12 other locations. If my hypothesis is correct, we could potentially activate dozens of similar systems across the galaxy. The weight of her words settled over the chamber. Dozens of ancient information storage systems could contain knowledge from civilizations that had existed long before any of the current galactic powers had even developed space travel. The scientific and historical value would be immeasurable. Counselor Luminos projected another telepathic message. If these systems contain advanced technological knowledge, how do we ensure that the information is shared equitably among all member species? That's exactly why I'm presenting this to the Council rather than proceeding independently, Zara answered. I believe this research could unite the galactic community around a common goal. Instead of competing for resources or technological advantages, we could work together to unlock the mysteries of our shared past. Counselor Mist's energy patterns swirled more rapidly. The collaborative aspect is indeed appealing. The Zephyrian Collective has long advocated for increased cooperation in archaeological endeavors. We would be interested in contributing our consciousness mapping technologies to such an initiative. One by one, the other council members began to express cautious interest. The Morphic Collective offered their bioadaptive analysis capabilities. The Ethereal Assembly suggested their dark energy manipulation techniques might be useful for powering ancient systems. Even the usually skeptical Vorthan representative acknowledged that their phase-shifting abilities could provide unique perspectives on multidimensional artifacts. Only Counselor Thakmor remained resistant. This proposal assumes that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge superior to our current understanding. The Kethran Empire has achieved technological supremacy through millions of years of systematic advancement. It is illogical to assume that primitive, extinct species could offer anything of value. Zara chose her words carefully, knowing that offending the Kethran representative could doom her proposal. Counselor Thakmor, I'm not suggesting that these ancient civilizations were more advanced than current galactic technology, but they may have developed different solutions to common problems. Sometimes a fresh perspective on old challenges can lead to unexpected improvements. She gestured to the still-active holographic display of the artifact network. Consider this from a strategic perspective. If these information systems do contain useful knowledge, wouldn't it be better for the galactic community to access it together rather than risk another species discovering it independently? The Archaeological Reconstruction Initiative would ensure that any discoveries benefit everyone equally. The strategic argument seemed to resonate with Thakmor's military mindset. His exoskeleton clicked thoughtfully as he considered the implications. If humans could indeed unlock ancient technological secrets, it would be better to control and share that process rather than allow it to proceed outside a galactic oversight. After nearly an hour of discussion and consultation, Counselor Vexthera called for a formal vote. The Council of Sciences will now vote on Dr. Chen's proposal to establish an archaeological reconstruction initiative under joint galactic oversight. Dr. Chen, please step outside while we deliberate. Zara left the chamber and waited in the corridor outside, her mind racing with possibilities and concerns. She had laid out her best arguments and provided compelling evidence, but the decision ultimately rested with beings whose thought processes and priorities were fundamentally different from her own. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, Eric's Seven's voice echoed through the corridor. Dr. Chun, the Council of Sciences requests your return to the chamber. When Zara re-entered the room, she immediately noticed that the atmospheric lighting had changed to a warmer spectrum, usually a sign that good news was forthcoming. Counselor Vexthera's crystalline form pulsed with steady, bright light as she spoke. Dr. Chun, the Council of Sciences has voted to approve your proposal by a margin of 9 votes in favor, 2 abstentions, and 1 vote against. The Archaeological Reconstruction Initiative will be established under joint galactic oversight, with initial funding provided by the Galactic Science Consortium. You will be appointed as the initiative's first director, with a mandate to assemble a multi-species research team. Zara felt a surge of elation that she struggled to contain. Thank you, counselors. I won't disappoint you. However, Counselor Vexthera continued, there are conditions. You will have 18 galactic standard months to demonstrate significant progress in activating and analyzing additional artifact systems. If the initiative fails to produce meaningful results within that time frame, funding will be discontinued and the project will be terminated. I understand, Zara replied, though privately she knew that 18 months would barely be enough time to establish the research facility, let alone achieve major breakthroughs. Additionally, added Counselor SYTH. All discoveries made by the initiative must be shared immediately with all member species. No single species or individual may claim exclusive rights to any knowledge or technology recovered through this research. That was always my intention, Zara assured them. This research belongs to the entire galactic community. As the council session concluded and the representatives began to disperse, Zara realized that she had just committed herself and humanity to one of the most ambitious scientific endeavors in galactic history. She would be working with technologies that the galaxy's greatest minds had failed to understand, trying to reconstruct systems from civilizations that have been extinct for millions of years, all while being watched by species that still considered humans to be primitive newcomers to the galactic community. But as she looked out at the star field visible through the chamber's dome, Zara felt a familiar surge of the determination that had driven human exploration throughout history. Her species had always been willing to take risks that others considered impossible. They had always found ways to succeed against overwhelming odds. And now they had the opportunity to prove that human ingenuity could unlock mysteries that had stumped the galaxy for millennia. The real work was about to begin. 6 months after the Council's approval, the Archaeological Reconstruction Initiative had transformed a forgotten asteroid mining facility in the Kepler 442 system into the galaxy's most unconventional research station. The converted facility bore little resemblance to the sleek, sterile laboratories that dominated galactic science. Instead of pristine white corridors and holographic interfaces, the station buzzed with the chaotic energy of active discovery. Dr. Zora Chun stood in the main laboratory, watching her assembled team work with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified her. The collaboration she had envisioned was proving more challenging than she had anticipated. Each species brought not only their unique capabilities, but also their deeply ingrained assumptions about how scientific research should be conducted. In one corner of the lab, Dr. Kethvar, Altarian crystallographer, was attempting to analyze a collection of geometric artifacts using harmonic resonance patterns. His crystalline form pulsed with increasingly frustrated energy as he tried to explain his methodology to Dr. Sarah Martinez, a human xenoarchaeologist who insisted on examining the same artifacts through traditional archaeological techniques. The molecular structure suggests a crystalline information matrix. Kethvar's translated voice carried an edge of impatience. Subjecting it to crude, physical examination could disrupt the quantum coherence patterns. Sarah looked up from her microscope, her face flushed with exhaustion. And your harmonic analysis might activate defensive mechanisms we don't understand. We need to document the physical properties before we start experimenting with activation sequences. Across the lab, Dr. Yithmore of the Morphic Collective was experiencing his own challenges. His bioadaptive appendages had successfully interfaced with several biomechanical artifacts, but the data streams he was receiving made no sense according to conventional information theory. The data structures are fundamentally different from anything in our databases, he reported to Zara during their daily briefing. It's as if these artifacts use a completely different logic system, not just different programming languages, but different concepts of what information itself represents. Meanwhile, Dr. Flux, the Zephyrian consciousness specialist, was making progress with what appeared to be mental interface devices. Her energy-based form could directly interact with psychoactive artifacts, but the experiences she reported were so alien that the universal translator struggled to convey her meaning. The consciousness patterns stored in these devices don't follow familiar thought structures, Flux explained, her energy signature fluctuating with each word. It's like trying to understand a dream that was dreamed by a mind that thinks in colors we've never seen. Despite the challenges, they were making progress. In the past month alone, the team had successfully activated 17 different artifact systems. Each activation revealed new mysteries and possibilities, but also raised disturbing questions about the civilizations that had created these technologies. The breakthrough that would change everything came from an unexpected source. Dr. Marcus Webb, a human computer scientist who specialized in pattern recognition, had been working on what seemed like the most mundane assignment, cataloging and organizing the thousands of artifacts stored in the station's vast warehouse sections. Dr. Chun, I think you need to see this. Marcus called from his workstation in the Archive Analysis Center. His voice carried an excitement that immediately caught Zara's attention. She found Marcus surrounded by holographic displays showing three-dimensional maps of artifact distribution patterns. The displays revealed something that made her breath catch in her throat. The artifacts weren't randomly distributed at all. When viewed from the proper perspective, they formed a vast, interconnected network spanning multiple star systems. I've been analyzing the recovery locations of every artifact we have on record, Marcus explained, his fingers dancing across the control interface to highlight different sections of the map. Initially, it seemed random, but when I started looking at the mathematical relationships between locations, I found something incredible. The holographic display zoomed in to show a detailed view of one star system. Dozens of red dots marked artifact recovery sites, and as Marcus adjusted the display parameters, connecting lines appeared between them. These aren't individual artifacts scattered by chance, Marcus continued. They're components of massive technological installations that were deliberately distributed across entire systems. Each star system represents a single, enormous machine. Zara stared at the display, her mind racing with implications. How many systems show this pattern? That's the thing, Marcus replied, his excitement building. Every system where we found artifacts shows this pattern. We're not looking at the remnants of a single civilization. We're looking at the components of a galaxy-spanning network that once connected hundreds of star systems. The magnitude of the discovery was staggering. If Marcus was correct, the ancient artifacts represented the most ambitious technological project in galactic history, a network that dwarfed even the current Galactic Confederation's communication and transportation infrastructure. But here's the really interesting part, Marcus said, bringing up another display. The network isn't complete anymore. Based on the mathematical patterns, I estimate that only about 30% of the original components are still intact. The rest were either destroyed, moved, or degraded beyond recognition over millions of years. Zara felt a chill as she realized what this meant. Marcus, if this network was designed to operate as a single system, then the components we've been activating are probably just fragments of much larger programs. Yes, Marcus finished. We've been getting partial outputs from a system that was designed to function as an integrated whole. The implications were both thrilling and terrifying. If they could somehow reconstruct enough of the network to achieve functional integration, they might gain access to the collective knowledge and technology of an entire galactic civilization. But they would also be activating a system whose full capabilities and purposes remained completely unknown. Zara immediately called an emergency meeting of the senior research staff. Within hours, representatives from each participating species had gathered in the station's main conference room, a converted cargo bay that had been hastily equipped with communication systems capable of handling the diverse physiological and technological requirements of the team members. When Zara presented Marcus's findings, the reaction was immediate and intense. Dr. Kethvar's crystalline form blazed with bright energy as he processed the implications. Dr. Chun, you're suggesting that these artifacts are components of a technology that spans multiple star systems? The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. Unless the network was designed to draw energy from sources we haven't considered, replied Dr. Thane Corvus, the Kethran military scientist who had been assigned to monitor the project for potential security implications. His massive exoskeleton clicked nervously as he spoke. A galaxy-spanning network would require power sources on the scale of stellar manipulation. Dr. Flux's energy patterns swirled with agitation. The consciousness interfaces I've been studying suddenly make more sense. They weren't designed for individual minds. They were designed for collective consciousness networks spanning multiple worlds. Dr. Yithmore extended several appendages toward the holographic display, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with rapid calculations. If this network was designed for data integration on such a scale, it would represent a level of information processing capability that exceeds our current technology by several orders of magnitude. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the enormity of what they were dealing with. They weren't just studying ancient artifacts. They were potentially on the verge of activating the most powerful technological system ever created. There's another consideration, Dr. Chun added quietly. If this network was as advanced and powerful as we suspect, why did the civilization that built it disappear? What happened to a species capable of engineering on this scale? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Throughout galactic history, numerous advanced civilizations had risen and fallen, but most have left clear evidence of their decline. Environmental collapse, warfare, technological stagnation. The builders of this network had simply vanished, leaving behind only scattered components of their greatest achievement. Dr. Corvus leaned forward, his military training evident in his direct approach. Dr. Chun, I must ask, have you considered the possibility that this network was not abandoned but was deliberately deactivated? If a civilization capable of such engineering chose to shut down their greatest achievement, perhaps they had good reasons. The concern was valid, and Zara had been wrestling with it since Marcus made his discovery. Dr. Corvus, that's exactly why we need to proceed carefully. We're not going to attempt any large-scale activation without understanding what we're dealing with. Our next step is to establish limited connections between artifact groups and monitor the results. Over the following weeks, the team began the delicate process of creating controlled network connections between different artifact clusters. They started small, linking just 2 or 3 components and carefully monitoring all energy outputs, data flows, and environmental effects. The results were both encouraging and unsettling. When properly connected, the artifacts demonstrated capabilities that seemed to violate several fundamental principles of galactic science. Information flowed between components instantaneously, regardless of distance, suggesting some form of faster-than-light communication that operated on completely different principles from conventional quantum entanglement. More disturbing were the consciousness effects reported by Dr. Flux and other telepathically sensitive team members. When the network components were active, they reported sensing vast, alien mental patterns that seemed to exist within the system itself. It's not artificial intelligence, as we understand it, Flux explained during one of their briefings. It's more like residual consciousness, as if the minds that operated this network left impressions of themselves within the system. Dr. Martinez, who had been documenting everything with meticulous care, raised a concern that had been troubling several team members. Are we sure we should be doing this? We're essentially performing digital necromancy on the remnants of a dead civilization. What if there are ethical implications we haven't considered? The question sparked a heated debate among the team members. Each species brought different ethical frameworks to the discussion, and finding common ground proved challenging. The Altarians viewed the research as a pursuit of pure knowledge that transcended individual concerns. The Morphic Collective saw it as an opportunity to understand new forms of life and consciousness. The Zephyrians were fascinated by the consciousness patterns within the network. The Kethrans focused on the potential military applications. The humans found themselves in the unexpected position of being the most cautious voices on the team. Their experience with archaeological ethics and the potential consequences of disturbing the dead made them acutely aware of the risks they were taking. We need to establish clear protocols, Zara insisted during one particularly heated discussion. We're not just dealing with technology here. We're potentially disturbing the final resting place of an entire civilization. We have moral obligations that extend beyond scientific curiosity. The debate was interrupted by an emergency alert from the station's monitoring systems. Erix, 9, the station's AI coordinator, announced that several artifact clusters had begun activating spontaneously, without any direct intervention from the research team. The main laboratory erupted into controlled chaos as team members rushed to monitor the unexpected activations. Holographic displays throughout the room showed energy patterns and data flows emanating from multiple artifact groups simultaneously. It's a cascade effect, Marcus called out from his monitoring station. The network connections we've established are triggering automatic responses in other components. The system is trying to restore itself. Dr. Kethvar's form blazed with alarm. The energy levels are increasing exponentially. If this continues, we could be looking at a complete system activation. Zara felt a chill of fear mixed with excitement. They were witnessing something that hadn't happened for millions of years, an ancient galactic network attempting to come back to life. But they had no idea what the consequences might be. Dr. Corvus, I need you to contact the Galactic Defense Fleet, she ordered. If this network achieves full activation, we're going to need backup. Already done, the Kethran replied, his exoskeleton clicking rapidly as he coordinated with military command. Fleet Admiral Zenth is dispatching a task force to our location, but they're 6 hours away at maximum warp. The spontaneous activations continued for several more minutes before gradually stabilizing at a new baseline level. The artifacts remained active, but the exponential energy increase had plateaued. The network was awake, but it seemed to be waiting for something. Waiting for what? Zara wondered aloud, staring at the pulsing patterns of light that now filled the laboratory. Dr. Flux's energy signature suddenly brightened with realization. I think it's waiting for a user interface. The consciousness patterns I've been sensing, they're not just residual memories. They're instructional protocols. The network is trying to teach us how to communicate with it. As if responding to her words, several of the artifacts began projecting holographic interfaces displaying symbols and patterns that shifted and changed in complex, rhythmic sequences. The team watched in fascination as the ancient network attempted to establish communication with its discoverers. But beneath the excitement, a troubling question remained. If this network was so eager to re-establish contact, why had its creators chosen to abandon it? And what would happen when they finally learned to speak its language? The answer to those questions would come sooner than anyone expected, and it would force humanity and the galactic community to confront truths about their universe that would change everything they thought they knew about life, consciousness, and the true history of the galaxy. 3 days after the network's spontaneous activation, Dr. Zara Chun found herself standing before a communication interface that defied every principle of galactic technology she thought she understood. The holographic display showed symbols that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, shifting through patterns that her human brain could barely process. Yet somehow, she was beginning to understand them. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. While the other team members struggled to decode the alien symbols using conventional translation algorithms, Dr. Emily Park, a human linguist specializing in dead languages, had approached the problem from a completely different angle. It's not a language in any traditional sense, Emily explained to the assembled team. It's more like a form of conceptual mathematics. Each symbol represents not just an idea, but an entire network of related concepts. When they combine, they create meaning structures that are almost impossible to express in conventional language. She gestured to the shifting patterns on the display. But humans have an advantage here. Our brains are exceptionally good at pattern recognition and intuitive leaps. We can grasp meaning even when we don't fully understand the underlying logic. Dr. Kethvar's crystalline form dimmed with skepticism. Dr. Park, you're suggesting that human intuition can decode information structures that have resisted analysis by our most advanced AI systems? I'm not just suggesting it. I'm proving it, Emily replied confidently. She approached the interface and began tracing patterns in the air above the holographic display. To everyone's amazement, the symbols responded to her movements, rearranging themselves into new configurations. The network isn't trying to teach us its language, Emily continued. It's trying to learn ours. Every interaction we have with it helps it understand how our minds work. It's adapting its communication protocols to match our cognitive patterns. Dr. Flux's energy signature fluctuated with excitement. That explains the consciousness patterns I've been detecting. The network isn't just processing information, it's studying us, learning how we think and perceive reality. The implications were staggering. They weren't just communicating with an ancient computer system. They were engaging with what appeared to be a living, adaptive intelligence that had been waiting millions of years for someone to discover it. As the days passed, the communication became more sophisticated. The network began displaying images and concepts that the team could understand, though the meanings were often disturbing. They learned that the original builders called themselves the architects, and they had created the network for a purpose that chilled every member of the research team. The architects had been facing an existential threat, not from war or environmental collapse, but from something far more terrifying. According to the network's historical records, they had discovered that reality itself was unstable. The universe was riddled with flaws and inconsistencies that would eventually lead to total collapse. They built this network to find a solution. Emily translated from the complex symbol patterns that flowed across the interface. They wanted to catalog every possible approach to preventing universal collapse, to gather the collective wisdom of every intelligent species in the galaxy. Dr. Yithmore extended multiple appendages toward the display, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with rapid calculations. Dr. Park, are you certain about this translation? The concept of universal instability contradicts everything we know about cosmic physics. I'm as certain as I can be, Emily replied. But the network wants to show us something. It's requesting permission to demonstrate what the architects discovered. Zara felt a chill of apprehension. What kind of demonstration? The interface shifted, displaying new symbols that Emily studied for several minutes before responding. It wants to show us the flaws in local space-time. Small-scale demonstrations that won't cause any permanent damage. Dr. Corvus's exoskeleton clicked with alarm. Absolutely not. We don't authorize any experiments involving space-time manipulation until we understand the full scope of this network's capabilities. But before anyone could stop it, the network began its demonstration. Several artifacts throughout the laboratory suddenly blazed with intense energy, and reality itself seemed to shiver. For a brief moment, everyone in the room experienced a disorienting sensation as the laws of physics became negotiable rather than absolute. Dr. Martinez gasped as she watched her coffee mug phase in and out of existence. It's showing us that matter isn't as stable as we think it is. The demonstration lasted only seconds, but it left the entire team shaken. They had just witnessed proof that the fundamental nature of reality was far more fragile than anyone had realized. The architect spent thousands of years studying these flaws. Emily continued translating. They developed technologies that could temporarily stabilize local space-time, but they realized that a permanent solution would require knowledge and resources beyond what any single species could provide. The network's next revelation was even more disturbing. The symbol showed that the architects had attempted to recruit other species into their project, but every attempt had failed. Most species either couldn't comprehend the true nature of the threat or refused to believe it existed. So they created this network as a trap? Dr. Flux asked, her energy patterns swirling with agitation. Not a trap, Emily corrected. A test. They designed the network to attract species with the intellectual flexibility and determination needed to understand their discoveries. They were looking for inheritors, species that could continue their work after they were gone. Dr. Kethvar's form brightened with realization, and humanity passed the test by succeeding where other species had failed. You didn't just activate random artifacts. You recognized them as components of a larger system. The weight of responsibility settled over the human members of the team like a heavy cloak. They had stumbled into a role that an entire extinct civilization had prepared for them, the guardians of knowledge that could prevent universal collapse. But The network wasn't finished with its revelations. The symbols shifted to show historical records of what had happened to the architects themselves. As Emily translated, the story that emerged was both tragic and terrifying. They succeeded in developing a solution, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. A way to stabilize reality permanently. But the process required the sacrifice of their entire civilization. They had to transform themselves into something else, something that could exist outside normal space-time and maintain the stability protocols forever. The interface showed the final moments of the architect's civilization. Billions of individuals willingly merged their consciousness into the network, becoming part of the stabilization system itself. They had saved the universe by ceasing to exist as individual beings. That's why we've been detecting consciousness patterns in the network, Dr. Flux realized. Those aren't just recordings or impressions. Those are the actual minds of the architects, still working to maintain universal stability after millions of years. The revelation transformed their understanding of everything they had been doing. They weren't just studying ancient technology, they were communicating with the preserved consciousness of an entire civilization that had sacrificed everything to save reality itself. But the network had one more revelation that would change everything. The symbols showed that the architect's sacrifice had not been a permanent solution. The stabilization protocols were failing. The universe was once again approaching a state of critical instability, and the network's ability to maintain balance was diminishing. They need help. Emily translated, her face pale with understanding. The network is dying. Without intervention, the stabilization protocols will fail within the next few hundred years, and reality collapse will begin. Dr. Corvus stepped forward, his military training evident in his direct approach. What kind of intervention? Are they asking us to sacrifice ourselves like they did? The symbols shifted again, and Emily spent several minutes studying the new patterns. When she spoke, her voice carried a mixture of hope and terror. They're not asking for sacrifice. They're asking for partnership. The architects learned something during their millions of years as guardians. The stabilization process doesn't require individual consciousness to be destroyed. It requires it to be shared. The interface began displaying technical specifications for a new type of connection protocol. Instead of merging consciousness into the network, the architects had developed a way to create permanent links that allowed individual minds to remain distinct while contributing to the collective effort. They want to create a new kind of galactic civilization, Emily continued. One where every species contributes their unique perspective and capabilities to the task of maintaining universal stability. Not sacrifice, but cooperation on a scale never before imagined. Dr. Yithmore's appendages flickered with rapid calculations. Dr. Park, the technical requirements for such a network would be enormous. We're talking about linking the consciousness of billions of individuals across thousands of worlds. The infrastructure already exists, Emily replied, gesturing to the artifacts around them. This network spans the entire galaxy. It just needs to be repaired and expanded to accommodate modern galactic civilization. The magnitude of what they were being asked to do was almost incomprehensible. The architects weren't just offering them ancient technology. They were inviting all of galactic civilization to join them in a project that would fundamentally transform the nature of existence itself. But as the team discussed the implications, they began to realize that humanity was uniquely positioned to make this transformation possible. Their gift for seeing connections where others saw impossibilities, their willingness to take risks that other species considered illogical, their ability to adapt and improvise, all of these qualities had led them to this moment. The other species in the galactic community will never accept this, Dr. Corvus warned. The concept of linking consciousness with an ancient network will terrify them. They'll see it as a form of technological possession. Zora nodded grimly. That's exactly why we need to be careful about how we present this. We can't just announce that we've made contact with a galaxy-spanning consciousness network that wants to link with modern civilization. We need to demonstrate the benefits gradually. The network seemed to understand their concerns. The symbols shifted to show a gradual implementation plan. Instead of attempting immediate integration with the entire galactic community, they could start with small groups of volunteers. As the benefits became apparent, others would choose to join. Dr. Flux's energy patterns stabilized into a pattern of determination. The Zephyrin Collective will participate. Our species has always been interested in consciousness expansion and shared mental experiences. The Morphic Collective will also contribute, added Dr. Yithmore. Our bioadaptive capabilities could help develop the biological interfaces needed for safe consciousness linking. One by one, the other species representatives expressed cautious interest in the project. Even Dr. Corvus admitted that the Kethran Empire might be interested if the military applications could be demonstrated safely. But, as they planned the next phase of their work, none of them realized that their communications with the network had not gone unnoticed. Across the galaxy, other ancient systems were beginning to activate in response to the renewed contact with the Architect network. Some of these systems have been designed as safeguards and backup protocols. Others had been created by civilizations that had opposed the Architect's plan. And a few have been built by entities that existed outside normal reality entirely, beings that had different ideas about what should be done with universal instability. The Archaeological Reconstruction Initiative was about to discover that the Architect's network was not the only ancient intelligence that had been waiting for someone to wake it up. And not all of these intelligences had humanity's best interests at heart. The real test of human ingenuity was about to begin, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The fate of not just galactic civilization, but reality itself, would depend on whether humanity could navigate the complex web of ancient powers that their discoveries had awakened. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong came from the outer monitoring stations scattered throughout the Kepler 442 system. Dr. Zara Chun was reviewing translation protocols with Emily Park when ARIX-9's emergency alerts began flooding the station's communication systems. Dr. Chun, we're detecting massive energy signatures from 17 different locations throughout the galaxy, the AI announced, its usually calm voice carrying an edge of electronic panic. The energy patterns match those of the Architect network, but these sources are not responding to our communication protocols. Zara felt her blood run cold as she pulled up the sensor data on her workstation. 17 red dots pulsed on the galactic map, each one marking the location of what appeared to be a fully activated Architect installation. But, according to their research, only fragments of the network should still exist. Emily, get on the interface and ask the network what's happening, Zara ordered, her mind racing with possibilities. ARIX-9, patch me through to the Galactic Defense Fleet immediately. Dr. Corvus's heavy footsteps echoed through the laboratory as he approached Zara's station. His exoskeleton was clicking with the rapid, staccato rhythm that Kethrans exhibited under extreme stress. Dr. Chun, Fleet Command is reporting similar energy signatures near major population centers throughout the galaxy. Whatever these installations are, they're strategically positioned to affect every major civilized system. Emily's voice called out from across the lab, tight with concern. Zara, the network is responding, but the translation is disturbing. It's saying something about competing protocols and inherited opposition. I think our activation of the Architect network triggered something else. The situation rapidly deteriorated as reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The mysterious installations weren't just active. They were scanning nearby worlds with energy beams that seemed to analyze everything from geological structures to the thought patterns of individual inhabitants. Dr. Flux's energy signature flickered with alarm as she interfaced directly with the Architect network's consciousness components. The minds within the network are frightened, she reported. They're saying that their ancient enemies have awakened. Apparently, The architects weren't the only civilization that developed solutions to universal instability. What kind of solutions? Zara asked, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want to know the answer. Emily worked frantically to translate the complex symbol patterns streaming across the interface. The network is showing me historical records. Apparently, while the architects were developing their stabilization protocols, other civilizations were working on different approaches. The interface displayed images that made the entire research team step back in horror. The symbols showed civilizations that had dealt with universal instability by attempting to control it rather than prevent it. Instead of stabilizing reality, they had learned to manipulate the flaws in space-time to their advantage. They became something that exists between realities, Emily continued, her voice barely above a whisper. They learned to feed on the energy released by reality collapse, growing stronger as universes died around them. The architects called them the Devourers. Dr. Kethvar's crystalline form blazed with desperate calculation. Dr. Park, are you saying that our activation of the architect network has awakened entities that consume dying realities? Worse than that, Emily replied, studying new patterns that appeared on the interface. According to these records, the Devourers don't just consume naturally occurring reality collapses. They've learned to trigger them artificially. They can destabilize entire sectors of space-time to create the energy they need to survive. The implications were staggering. Humanity's archaeological expedition had not just awakened a network designed to save the universe. They had also alerted entities whose existence depended on destroying it. The Architect Network is requesting immediate access to all our communication systems, Emily announced. They want to broadcast a warning to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Do it, Zara ordered without hesitation. Whatever's coming, we need to warn everyone. Within minutes, every communication array in galactic space was carrying the Architect Network's message. The warning was transmitted in every known language and communication protocol, reaching billions of individuals across thousands of worlds simultaneously. The message was simple and terrifying. Reality itself was under attack. The ancient installations that had appeared throughout the galaxy were advanced scouts for entities that existed outside normal space-time. These Devourers were preparing to destabilize local reality in order to consume the energy released by the collapse. The galactic community's reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some species dismissed the warning as a hoax or human propaganda. Others began immediate evacuation procedures from systems near the mysterious installations. The Kethran Empire declared a state of military emergency and began mobilizing their war fleets. But the real chaos began when the Devourers made their first move. The attack came without warning and with devastating effectiveness. The installation near the Vorthen home system suddenly blazed with dark energy that seemed to absorb light itself. Within hours, reports confirmed that reality within a sphere 50 light-years in diameter had become unstable. Space and time are breaking down in the affected region, Dr. Corvus reported grimly as he relayed information from military intelligence. Ships entering the zone experienced temporal displacement, gravitational anomalies, and complete failure of faster-than-light communication. It's as if the basic laws of physics have been suspended. The Architect Network responded immediately, activating defensive protocols that had been dormant for millions of years. Ancient installations throughout the galaxy came online, creating protective fields around major population centers. But the network's defensive capabilities were limited by the damage it had sustained over the millennia. The architects are asking for our help, Emily translated from the increasingly frantic symbol patterns on the interface. Their network is incomplete. They can protect some worlds, but not all of them. They need us to help them rebuild the missing components. Dr. Yithmore extended multiple appendages toward the interface, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with rapid analysis. Dr. Park, what exactly are they asking us to do? We don't have the technology to construct architect-level installations. The answer that came back through the network was both inspiring and terrifying. The architects didn't need humanity to build new technology. They needed them to become the technology. They're offering us direct integration with the network, Emily explained, her face pale with the implications. Not just communication links, but full consciousness merger. Our minds would become part of the stabilization system itself. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone in the laboratory understood what was being asked of them. The architects were offering them the chance to save the galaxy, but the price was their individual existence as they knew it. Dr. Flux was the first to speak. The Zephyrian Collective has experience with consciousness sharing. We could potentially serve as test subjects for the integration process. Absolutely not, Dr. Corvus declared, his exoskeleton clicking with agitation. We don't authorize any consciousness merger experiments while under attack. The risks are too great. But before anyone could debate the issue further, the situation changed dramatically. Dr. Sarah Martinez, who had been monitoring the archaeological database, called out in alarm. Everyone, look at this. She had discovered something that changed their understanding of the entire situation. While analyzing the artifact distribution patterns, she had found evidence that the Archaeological Reconstruction Initiative was not humanity's first encounter with architect technology. I've been cross-referencing artifact recovery sites with human exploration history, Sarah explained. There's a pattern here that's been hidden by the sheer scale of the data. Human ships have been finding and collecting architect artifacts for over a century, but we didn't recognize them as part of a connected system. She displayed a holographic map showing human exploration routes overlaid with artifact recovery sites. The correlation was undeniable. Humanity had been unconsciously following the architect network's guidance for decades. It's as if the network has been calling to us, Sarah continued, drawing human explorers to specific locations, encouraging us to collect the components needed for eventual reactivation. Emily's face brightened with realization. That's why we were able to succeed where other species failed. The network wasn't just waiting for any species to discover it. It was specifically guiding humanity toward this moment. The revelation had profound implications. If the architects had been guiding human development for decades, then humanity's unique qualities weren't just coincidental advantages. They had been deliberately cultivated for this purpose. But the philosophical implications would have to wait. The Devourer installations were beginning to coordinate their attacks, creating expanding zones of reality instability that threatened to merge into a galaxy-spanning collapse cascade. The network is offering us a different option, Emily announced as new symbols appeared on the interface. Instead of full consciousness merger, they're proposing a partial integration process. Our minds would remain individual, but we would gain the ability to interface directly with the stabilization protocols. Dr. Kethvar's form pulsed with cautious interest. What kind of capabilities would such integration provide? The answer that came through the network made everyone in the room stare in amazement. Integrated individuals would gain the ability to manipulate space-time directly, to stabilize reality through conscious intention, and to coordinate with the network's defensive systems in real time. They're offering to make us into living reality stabilizers, Emily said in wonder. We would become human anchors that hold the universe together. The offer was tempting, but it came with risks that nobody fully understood. Integration with an ancient alien consciousness network could have consequences that wouldn't become apparent for years or decades. They would be transforming themselves into something that had never existed before, a hybrid of human consciousness and architect technology. But as the Devourer attacks intensified and more sectors of space fell to reality collapse, it became clear that they were running out of options. The conventional military forces of the galactic community were helpless against enemies that existed outside normal space-time. Only the Architect Network's reality manipulation technology had any chance of stopping the Devourers. "I'll do it," Zara announced suddenly, her voice cutting through the debate. "I'll volunteer for the integration process." "Dr. Chun, you can't," Dr. Corvus protested. "The risks are unknown. You could lose your humanity entirely. And if I don't try, We'll all lose everything, Zara replied. The galaxy is under attack by entities that consume realities for food. Our choices are to take risks or to watch the universe die. One by one, other team members stepped forward to volunteer. Dr. Flux offered her consciousness manipulation expertise. Dr. Yithmore volunteered his bioadaptive capabilities. Even Dr. Corvus, despite his concerns, agreed to provide military tactical knowledge to the integration process. But as they prepared for the most dangerous archaeological experiment in galactic history, none of them realized that the Devourers had been listening to their communications. The entities that fed on dying realities had learned something disturbing about humanity's role in the Architect Network. The humans weren't just potential allies for the stabilization system. They were the key component that the Architect had been trying to create for millions of years. The Devourers had discovered that stopping humanity's integration with the network was their only chance to prevent the permanent stabilization of reality. The final battle for the fate of the universe was about to begin, and it would be fought not just in space, but in the consciousness of the individuals brave enough to merge their minds with ancient alien technology. The question wasn't whether humanity could save the galaxy. It was whether they could do so while remaining human. The integration chamber hummed with energy that existed beyond the normal spectrum of reality. Dr. Zara Chun lay suspended in a crystalline matrix that the Architect Network had constructed using artifact from across the galaxy, each piece precisely positioned to create a harmony of ancient technologies that had never been combined in this way before. Around her, the other volunteers waited in similar matrices. Dr. Flux's energy form flickered with nervous anticipation within a containment field designed specifically for consciousness-based entities. Dr. Yithmore's bioadaptive appendages interfaced with organic components that pulsed with living light. Even Dr. Corvus had agreed to the procedure, his massive Kethran form encased in a matrix that would allow his military tactical experience to merge with the network's defensive protocols. Integration will begin in 30 seconds, Emily announced from the control station, her voice tight with concentration as she coordinated with the Architect consciousness through the communication interface. Remember, maintain your sense of individual identity throughout the process. The network will try to absorb your consciousness completely, but you need to resist that pull while still allowing the connection to form. Dr. Kethvar's crystalline form blazed with concern from his position at the monitoring station. Dr. Chun, the energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. We have no way to predict what this process will do to your neural patterns. We'll find out together, Zara replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her system. If this doesn't work, make sure the galaxy knows that we tried. The integration process began with a sensation unlike anything Zara had ever experienced. It felt as though her consciousness was being gently pulled apart and examined by minds that existed on a completely different level of reality. The Architect Network's collective intelligence touched every aspect of her being, her memories, her emotions, her fundamental understanding of existence itself. But instead of overwhelming her individual identity, the network seemed to enhance it. Zara found herself becoming more aware of her own thoughts and feelings, not less. The Architect consciousness was learning from her humanity rather than trying to replace it. The first change was in her perception of space and time. Suddenly, she could sense the fabric of reality itself, the underlying structure that held the universe together. And she could see the damage that the Devourers had inflicted. Great wounds in space-time spread across the galaxy like a cosmic cancer, growing larger with each passing moment. "I can see them," she whispered, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated through dimensions beyond normal space. The Devourers, they're not just destroying reality, they're converting it into something else, something that exists in the spaces between universes. Through the network's enhanced perception, she watched the Devourer installations working in coordination. Each one was creating a specific type of space-time distortion, and together they were weaving a pattern that would allow entities from outside reality to enter and consume this universe completely. Integration successful for all volunteers, Emily reported, her voice filled with amazement. You're all maintaining individual consciousness while accessing network capabilities. The readings show that you're still completely human, just enhanced. Dr. Flux's voice came through the communication system with new depth and clarity. The consciousness patterns are incredible. I can sense every living mind in the galaxy simultaneously, but they're all distinct and separate. The network doesn't homogenize consciousness. It celebrates diversity. But their marvel at the integration process was cut short by an urgent alert from Dr. Yithmore. His bioadaptive senses had detected something that made the entire research team freeze with terror. The Devourers are moving faster than we anticipated, he reported, his voice now carrying subsonic frequencies that conveyed information directly to the other integrated team members. They're not just attacking random targets. They're specifically targeting every location where we've activated architect technology. The realization hit them like a physical blow. The Devourers weren't just trying to consume the galaxy. They were trying to prevent the architect network from fully activating. They understood that once the stabilization protocols came online completely, their ability to trigger reality collapse will be permanently blocked. They're coming here, Dr. Corvus announced, his military training now enhanced by tactical awareness that spanned multiple dimensions. I could detect Devourer entities moving through the spaces between realities. They'll reach our position within 6 hours. Zara felt the architect network's collective consciousness surge with determination. The ancient minds that had sacrificed themselves to preserve reality were not going to let the Devourers succeed. But the network was still incomplete, still damaged after millions of years of neglect. We need to accelerate the repair process, she declared, her enhanced awareness showing her exactly what needed to be done. The network has enough functional components to stabilize local space-time, but we need to link them all together simultaneously. The task seemed impossible. The remaining architect installations were scattered across hundreds of light years, and many were buried on worlds controlled by species that had no understanding of what they possessed. Getting access to all the necessary components would require the cooperation of the entire galactic community. But humanity had spent centuries learning how to unite diverse groups around common goals. And now they had the enhanced capabilities needed to make their case on a scale never before imagined. Emily opened communication channels to every government and scientific institution in the galaxy, Zara ordered. We're going to explain the situation to everyone at once. What followed was the largest coordinated communication event in galactic history. Using the Architect Network's communication capabilities, the integrated team members spoke directly to every major leader, scientist, and military commander in known space simultaneously. They explained the threat posed by the Devourers with clarity that cut through species barriers and political complications. They demonstrated the reality manipulation capabilities of the Architect Network by temporarily stabilizing several regions that had been damaged by Devourer attacks. Most importantly, they showed that integration with the network enhanced rather than diminished individual identity and capability. The response was immediate and unprecedented. Species that had been rivals for millennia suddenly found themselves working together to locate and activate architect installations. The Altarian hegemony used their crystal resonance technology to awaken dormant artifacts. The Vorthan Confederation phase-shifted entire archaeological teams to buried installations. The Morphic Collective bioadapted themselves to interface with organic components that had been growing unnoticed in forest worlds for millions of years. But the most remarkable response came from humanity itself. Humans throughout the galaxy stepped forward to volunteer for integration with the network. Their unique combination of pattern recognition, adaptive thinking, and stubborn determination made them ideal candidates for bridging the gap between ancient architect consciousness and modern galactic civilization. Within 4 hours, over 1,000 humans had undergone integration procedures at hastily constructed facilities throughout human space. Each integration strengthened the network's connection to reality and enhanced its ability to coordinate defensive measures. As the 6th hour approached, the Devourer assault began in earnest. The entities that existed between realities launched themselves at the research station with fury that distorted space-time around them. They were no longer trying to trigger gradual reality collapse. They were attempting to tear a hole in the universe large enough to allow their entire species to enter this reality. But they discovered that they were no longer fighting just the damaged remnants of an ancient network. They were facing a hybrid consciousness that combined the wisdom of the architects with the ingenuity of humanity and the diverse capabilities of the entire galactic community. The battle was fought on levels of reality that most beings couldn't even perceive. Zara found herself manipulating fundamental forces with thoughts that existed partially outside normal space-time. Dr. Flux coordinated defensive measures by linking the consciousness of billions of volunteers across the galaxy. Dr. Yithmore adapted the network's biocomponents to respond to attacks that came from directions that didn't exist in three-dimensional space. The Devourers had expected to face the same type of static defensive system that the architect had originally created. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented, a living, growing, adapting network that learned from every attack and became stronger with each attempted assault. The turning point came when Dr. Corvus made a tactical breakthrough that only a consciousness enhanced by both military experience and reality manipulation capabilities could have achieved. He realized that the Devourers' attacks followed predictable patterns based on their need to consume specific types of space-time distortion. They're not just randomly destructive, he announced to the integrated team. They have dietary requirements. They need to consume realities that collapse in specific ways to survive. Using this knowledge, the integrated defenders began feeding false collapse signatures to the Devourer entities, leading them into areas of space-time that had been prepared as traps. Instead of finding collapsing realities to consume, the Devourers found themselves trapped in zones of hyperstable space-time that cut them off from their extra-dimensional feeding grounds. One by one, the Devourer entities found themselves isolated and weakened, unable to access the energy they needed to maintain their existence between realities. As their strength faded, the gaps they had torn in space-time began to heal, sealed by the combined will of the integrated network. The final phase of the battle lasted only minutes, but seemed to stretch across epochs of subjective time. The remaining Devourers made one last, desperate assault on the fabric of reality itself, trying to trigger a cascade collapse that would destroy the entire galaxy. But they were met by something they had never encountered before, a conscious universe that refused to collapse. The integrated network, now spanning thousands of worlds and encompassing billions of individual minds, asserted its collective will over the fundamental forces of existence. Reality stabilized not because it was forced by external technology, but because the beings living within it chose to make it stable. The universe became conscious of itself through the network, and that consciousness chose to continue existing. In the aftermath of victory, the galaxy found itself transformed. The integration process had created something unprecedented, a truly unified galactic civilization that maintained the diversity and individuality of its component species while working together on a level that transcended traditional politics and cultural barriers. The Archaeological Reconstruction Initiative had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. What had begun as a simple proposal to study ancient artifacts had evolved into the next stage of galactic evolution. Zara stood once again at the observation deck where her journey had begun, but now she could see far beyond the physical ships moving through space. She could perceive the vast network of consciousness that linked every integrated world, the flow of knowledge and experience between species that had never been able to communicate before, and the growing sense of purpose that was driving galactic civilization toward achievements that would have seemed impossible just months ago. Dr. Chun, Emily's voice came through the communication system, still carrying the enhanced harmonics of integration. The Council of Sciences wants to know what our next research priority should be. Zara smiled, feeling the vast excitement of billions of minds contemplating the question together. The Architect Network's historical databases contained references to other universes, other realities where different versions of the fundamental laws of physics applied. There were hints of technologies that could allow conscious beings to exist in multiple realities simultaneously, of ways to explore dimensions that existed perpendicular to normal space-time. Emily, tell the Council that our next project is going to be even more ambitious than this one, Zara replied. We're going to learn how to explore beyond the boundaries of our own universe. And this time we're going in together. The Archaeological Reconstruction Initiative had proven something that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. When humanity brought their unique perspective to problems that seemed unsolvable, when they combined their natural curiosity with the wisdom of ancient civilizations and the capabilities of diverse species working in harmony, there were no limits to what they could achieve. The galaxy had dismissed humanity's archaeological interests as useless academic pursuits. But humanity had transformed that useless scrap into the foundation of a new form of existence that would carry conscious life beyond the boundaries of a single reality and into the infinite possibilities of the multiverse itself. The universe had been saved not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by the most fundamentally human quality of all, the refusal to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable.